Exodus chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came to Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falls out any war, they also join to our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Raamses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Yahweh, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said to them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered before the midwives come into them. Therefore Yahweh dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Yahweh, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 2. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and bore a son. And when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and pitch, and put the child in it. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to find out what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark amongst the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrew children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to you a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren, and looked upon their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to them that did the wrong, Why are you striking your neighbor? And he said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you did kill the Egyptian? And Moses feared, and said, Surely this thing is known. And now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. And now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came near, and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came, and drove them away. But Moses stood up, and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, How is it that you are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock. And he said to his daughters, Where is he? And why is it that you have left the man? Call him, so that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up to Yahweh by reason of the bondage. And Yahweh heard their groaning, and Yahweh remembered his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and with Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Israel, and Yahweh had respect to them. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 3. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of Yahweh, to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called to him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not draw near here. Put off your shoes from off of your feet, for the place whereon you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Yahweh. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come to me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said to Yahweh, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a token to you, that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve Yahweh upon this mountain. And Moses said to Yahweh, Behold, when I come to the children of Israel, and shall say to them, The Elohim of your father has sent me to you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And Yahweh said to Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shall you say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And Yahweh said moreover to Moses, Thus shall you say to the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go, gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice. And you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh, our Elohim. And I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand, and strike Egypt with all my wonders which I will do in the midst of it. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourns in her house, jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and you shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 4. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor listen to my voice, for they will say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. And Yahweh said to them, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it. And Yahweh said to Moses, Put forth your hand, and take it by the tail. He put forth his hand, caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe that Yahweh, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahweh said furthermore to him, Put now your hand to your bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put your hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe you, neither listen to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither listen to your voice, that you shall take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which you take out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moses said to Yahweh, O Yahweh, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech, and of a slow tongue. And Yahweh said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the dumb or deaf or the seeing or the blind? Have not I, Yahweh? Now, therefore, go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. And he said, O Yahweh, send, I pray you, by the hand of him whom you will send. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he comes forth to meet you. And when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put words in his mouth. And I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. And he shall be your spokesman to the people. And he shall be, even he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and you shall be to him instead of Yahweh. And you shall take this rod in your hand, and with it you shall do signs. And Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, Let me go, I ask you, and return to my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. And Yahweh said to Moses in Midian, Go, return to Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought after your life. And Moses took his wife and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of Yahweh in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moses, When you go to return to Egypt, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I put in your hand, but I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn, and I say to you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, even your firstborn. And it came to pass by the way, in the inn, that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. And then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son, and cast it at his feet, and said, Surely a bloody husband you are to me. And so he let him go. And then she said, A bloody husband you are, because of the circumcision. And Yahweh said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mount of Yahweh, and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of Yahweh who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people, and the people believed. And when they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, Then they bowed their heads and worshipped. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 5. And afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, neither will I let Israel go. And they said, The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we ask you, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Egypt said to them, Why do you do this, Moses and Aaron? Let the people off from their work? Get you to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and you make them rest from their burdens. And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, You shall no more give the people straw to make brick as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And the number of the bricks which they did make before, you shall lay upon them. You shall not diminish any of it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our Elohim. Let their more work be laid upon the men, that they may labor in it, and let them not regard vain words. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spoke to the people, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go, get your own straw where you can find it. Yet not any of your work shall be diminished. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying, Fulfill your work, your daily tasks, as when there was straw. And the officer of the children of Israel, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and demanded, Why have you not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today, as before? And then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you so deal with us and with your servants? There is no straw given to your servants. And they say to us, Make brick, and behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is your own people. But he said, You are idle. You're idle. Therefore you say, Let us go and do sacrifice to Yahweh. You go therefore now and work, for there shall no straw be given you. Yet shall you deliver the number of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel did see that they were evil, after it was said, You shall not deduct any from your bricks of your daily task. And when they met Moses and Aaron, who stood in the way as they came forth from Pharaoh, and they said to them, Yahweh look upon you and judge, because you've made our savor to be hated in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. And Moses returned to Yahweh and said, Yahweh, why then have you so evil entreated this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people. Neither have you delivered your people at all. End of chapter. This chapter 6. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Now shall you see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And Elohim spoke to Moses, and said to him, I am Yahweh, and I appeared to Abraham, and to Isaac, and to Jacob, by the name of El Shaddai. But by my name Yahweh I was not known to them. And I have also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, in which they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you an Elohim, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, which brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you into the land concerning that which I did swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and I will give it to you for a heritage. I am Yahweh. And Moses spoke so to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to him, Moses, for anguish of spirit and for cruel bondage. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Go in, speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that he let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moses spoke before Yahweh, saying, Behold, the children of Israel have not listened to me. How then shall Pharaoh hear me, who am of uncircumcised lips? And Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, and gave them a charge to the children of Israel, and to Pharaoh king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. These are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben the firstborn of Israel, Hanok, and Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, and Jamin, and Ohad, and Jachin, and Zohar, and Shaul the son of a Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, and Kohath, and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimi, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath, Amram, and Izhar, and Hebron, and Uzziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. And the sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi. These are the families of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took to him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And the sons of Izhar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zichri. And the sons of Uzziel, Mishael, and Elzaphan, and Zithri. And Aaron took to him Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Naashon, to wife, and she bore him Nadab, and Abihu, and Eleazar, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korah, Asir, and Elkanah, and Abiasap. These are the families of the Korhites. And Eleazar, Aaron's son, took him of the daughters of Putiel to wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers of the Levites according to their families. These are that Aaron and Moses, to whom Yahweh said, Bring out the children of Israel from the land of Egypt according to their armies. These are they which spoke to Pharaoh king of Egypt, to bring out the children of Israel from Egypt. These are that Moses and Aaron. And it came to pass on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, that Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, I am Yahweh. Speak you to Pharaoh king of Egypt all that I say to you. And Moses said before Yahweh, Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how shall Pharaoh listen to me? End of chapter. Exodus chapter 7. And Yahweh said to Moses, See, I have made you as Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother shall be your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aaron your brother shall speak to Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not listen to you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh, when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt, and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as Yahweh commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak to you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then you shall say to Aaron, Take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in to Pharaoh, and they did as Yahweh had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. And then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments, for they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up theirs. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he listened not to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Get you to Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goes out to the water, and you shall stand by the river's brink against the time that he shall come, and the rod which was turned into a serpent shall you take in your hand, and you shall say to him, Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, until now you would not hear. Thus says Yahweh, In this you shall know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I will strike with the rod that is in my hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that are in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink of the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, Say to Aaron, Take your rod, and stretch out your hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so as Yahweh commanded. And he lifted up the rod, and struck the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. And the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Neither did he listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house. Neither did he set his heart to this also. And all the Egyptians digged round about the river for water to drink, for they could not drink the water of the river. And 7 days were fulfilled after that Yahweh had struck the river. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 8. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, Go to Pharaoh, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will plague all your borders with frogs. And the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into your house, into your bedchamber, and upon your bed, and into the house of your servants, and upon your people, and into your ovens, and into your kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on you, and upon your people, and upon all your servants. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, Say to Aaron, Stretch forth your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. Well, then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and said, Entreat Yahweh that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice to Yahweh. And Moses said to Pharaoh, Be pleased to command me. When shall I entreat for you and for your servants and for your people to destroy the frogs from you and your houses, that they may remain in the river only? And he said, Tomorrow. And he said, Be it according to your word, that you may know that there is none like to Yahweh our Elohim. And the frogs shall depart from you, and from your houses, and from your servants, and from your people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh. And Moses cried to Yahweh because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moses. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, and listened not to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moses, Say to Aaron, Stretch out your rod, and strike the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and struck the dust of the earth, and it became lice in the man, and in beast, and all the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. And so there was lice upon man and upon beast. Well, then the magicians said to Pharaoh, This is the finger of Yahweh. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moses, Rise up early in the morning, stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he comes forth to the water, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if you will not let my people go, I will send swarms of flies upon you, and upon your servants, and upon your people, and into your houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground upon where they are. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end that you may know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and your people, Tomorrow shall this sign be. And Yahweh did so. And there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron, and said, Go you, sacrifice to your Elohim in the land. And Moses said, It is not proper to do so, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to Yahweh our Elohim. Lo, we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, and will they not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey from here into the wilderness, and sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim as he shall command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, so that you may sacrifice to Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness. Only you shall not go very far away. Ask for me. And Moses said, Behold, I go out from you, and I will ask Yahweh that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go to sacrifice to Yahweh. And Moses went out from Pharaoh, and asked Yahweh, and Yahweh did according to the word of Moses. And he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people, and there remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 9. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh, and tell him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go, and will hold them still, behold, the hand of Yahweh is upon your cattle which are in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous plague. And Yahweh shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is in the children of Israel. And Yahweh appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow Yahweh shall do this thing in the land. And Yahweh did that thing on the next day, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel not one died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And Yahweh said to Moses and to Aaron, Take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh, and it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and there shall be a boil breaking forth with blisters upon man and upon beast throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took ashes of the furnace, and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with blisters upon man and upon beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians, and upon all the Egyptians. And Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he listened not to them, as Yahweh had spoken to Moses. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon your heart, and upon your servants, and upon your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. For now I will stretch out my hand, that I may send judgment upon you and your people with pestilence, and you shall be cut off from the earth. And in very deed for this cause have I raised you up, to show in you my power, that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. And yet you exalt yourself against my people, that you will not let them go. Tomorrow, about this time, I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as not been seen in Egypt since the foundation of it even until now. Send therefore now, and gather your cattle, and all that you have in the field, for upon every man and beast which shall be found in the field and shall not be brought home, the hail shall come down upon them, and they shall die. He that feared the word of Yahweh among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee into the houses, and he that did not regard the word of Yahweh left his servants and his cattle in the field. And Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch forth your hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man and upon beast and upon every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, And Yahweh sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along the ground, and Yahweh rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail, and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail struck down all that were in the field throughout all the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And the hail struck down every herb of the field, and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron, and said to them, I have sinned this time. Yahweh is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Ask Yahweh, for it is enough, that there be no more mighty thunderings and hail, and I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. And Moses said to him, As soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread forth my hands to Yahweh, and the thunder shall cease, neither shall be there any more hail, that you may know now that the earth is Yahweh's. But as for you and your servants, I know that you will not yet fear Yahweh Elohim. And the flax and the barley were ruined, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was bold. But the wheat and the rye were not ruined, for they were not yet grown up. And Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh, and spread forth his hands to Yahweh, and the thunder and hail ceased, and the rain was not poured upon the earth. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as Yahweh had spoken through Moses. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 10. And Yahweh said to Moses, Go in to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that I might show these my signs before him, and that you may tell in the ears of your son and of your son's son what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know how that I am Yahweh. And Moses and Aaron came in to Pharaoh, and said to him, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring the locusts to your coast, and they shall cover the face of the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth. And they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, which remains to you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which grows for you out of the field. And they shall fill your houses, and the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were upon the earth to this day. And he turned himself, and went out from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve Yahweh their Elohim. Do you not know yet that Egypt is destroyed? And Moses and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh, and he said to them, Go, serve Yahweh your Elohim. But where are they that shall go? And Moses said, We will go with our young and with our old, and with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds will we go. For we must hold a feast to Yahweh. And he said to them, Yet let Yahweh be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones. Look to it, for evil is in front of you. Not so. Go now, you that are men, and serve Yahweh. For that you did desire. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail has left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and Yahweh brought an east wind upon the land all that day, and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees, nor or in the herbs of the field, throughout all the land of Egypt. And then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against Yahweh your Elohim, and against you. Now, therefore, forgive, I ask you, my sin only this once, and ask Yahweh your Elohim that he may take away from me this death only. And he went out from Pharaoh, and asked Yahweh. And Yahweh turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts, and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the coasts of Egypt. But Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, neither did any rise from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called to Moses and said, Go, serve Yahweh. Only let your flocks and your herds be staying behind. Let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, You must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not a hoof be left behind, for of that must we take to serve Yahweh our Elohim. We do not know with what we must serve Yahweh until we come there. But Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, Get you away from me. Take heed to yourself. See my face no more, for in that day that you see my face you shall die. And Moses said, You have spoken well. I will see your face no more. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 11. And Yahweh said to Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go from there. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out from there altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor and every woman of her neighbor jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus says Yahweh, About midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits upon his throne, even to the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that you may know how that Yahweh does put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these your servants shall come down to me, and bow yourselves down to me, saying, Get you out, and all the people that follow you, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And Yahweh said to Moses, Pharaoh shall not listen to you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 12. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be to you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak you to all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it. And they shall take of the blood, and strike it upon the 2 side posts and upon the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat of it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs and with the inner parts. And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. and that which remains of it till the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it, with your loins girded, with your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will slay all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yahweh. And blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy, when I strike the land of Egypt. And this day shall be to you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even the day before you shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day shall be a holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For in this selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread, until the 21st day of the month at evening. 7 days there shall be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eats that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations you shall eat unleavened bread. And then Moses called for all the elders of Israel, and said to them, Draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out the door of his house until the morning. For Yahweh will pass through to strike down the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood upon the lintel and the 2 side posts, Yahweh will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your houses and strike you down. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to you and to your sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when you are come to the land which Yahweh will give you, according as he has promised, that you shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say to you, What do you mean by this service? That you shall say, It is the sacrifice of Yahweh's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he struck down the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshipped. And the children of Israel went away, and did as Yahweh had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. And it came to pass that at midnight Yahweh struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up and get you from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go, serve Yahweh as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We are all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and clothing. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent to them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men as well as children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, in flocks and herds, and even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt. For it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not linger, neither had they prepared for themselves any provisions. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed to Yahweh, for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahweh, to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. And Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat of it. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when you have circumcised him, then he shall eat of it. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat of it. In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not carry forth any of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall you break a bone of it. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall travel with you, and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and let them come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat of it. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and to the stranger that travels among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as Yahweh commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. And it came to pass the selfsame day that Yahweh did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 13. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Sanctify to me all the firstborn, whatsoever opens the womb among the children of Israel. Of man and of beast, it is mine. And Moses said to the people, Remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of the hand of Yahweh brought you forth from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came you out in the month of Abib. And it shall be, when Yahweh shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a feast to Yahweh. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with you, neither shall there be leaven seen with you in all your quarters. And you shall show your son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which Yahweh did to me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign to you upon your hand, and for a memorial between your eyes, that Yahweh's law may be in your mouth, for with a strong hand has Yahweh brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year. And it shall be, when Yahweh shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and to your fathers, and shall give it to you, that you shall set apart to Yahweh all that first opens the womb, and every firstling that comes of a beast which you have, the males shall be Yahweh's. And every firstling of an ass that you shall redeem with a lamb, and if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck, and all the firstborn of man among your children shall you redeem. And it shall be, when your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is this? That you shall say to him, By strength of hand Yahweh brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that Yahweh slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to Yahweh all males that first open the womb, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem. And it shall be for a token upon your hand, and for frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of hand Yahweh brought us forth out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Yahweh led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For Yahweh said, Lest perhaps the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But Yahweh led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up equipped for battle out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, Yahweh will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones away with you. And they took their journey from Succoth, and encamped in Etham, in the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light, to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night, from before the people. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 14. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon. Before it shall you encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them. And I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am Yahweh. And they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled. And the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people, and they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot, and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with a high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh, and they said to Moses, Because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why, therefore, have you dealt with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell you in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, Do not fear, stand still, and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will show to you to this day. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever. Yahweh shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. And Yahweh said to Moses, Why do you cry to me? Speak to the children of Israel, that they go forward. But you lift up your rod, and stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will gain honor over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have gained honor over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the angel of Yahweh, which went in front of the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face, and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and a darkness to them. But it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry. And the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went to the midst of the sea upon the dry. And the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued, and went in after them to the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch Yahweh looked to the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, so that they drove them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Egyptians. And Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and Yahweh overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus Yahweh saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which Yahweh did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared Yahweh, and believed Yahweh, and his servant Moses. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 15. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song to Yahweh, and spoke, saying, I will sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider has he thrown into the sea. Yahweh is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. He is my Elohim, and I will prepare him a habitation. My Father is Elohim, and I will exalt him. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host has he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank into the bottom as a stone. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has become glorious in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellency you have overthrown them that rose up against you. You sent forth your wrath. You consumed them as stubble. And with the blast of your nostrils the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. And the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil, my lust shall be satisfied upon them, I will draw my sword, and my hand shall destroy them. You did blow with your wind, the sea covered them, they sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Yahweh, among the mighty? Who is like you, majestic in being, set apart, fearful in praises, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You in your mercy have left forth the people which you have redeemed. You have guided them in your strength to your holy habitation. And the people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold upon the inhabitants of Palestina. And then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of your arm they shall be as still as a stone, till your people pass over, O Yahweh, till the people pass over which you have purchased. You shall bring them in, and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahweh, which you have made for you to dwell in the sanctuary, O Yahweh, which your hands have established. Yahweh shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen to the sea, and Yahweh brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider has he thrown into the sea. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. And they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Merah, they could not drink of the waters of Merah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Merah. But the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried to Yahweh. And Yahweh showed him a tree, which, when he had cast it into the waters were made sweet. And there he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them, and said, If you will diligently listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, and will do that which is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all of his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon you which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am Yahweh that heals you. And they came to Elim, and there were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 16. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, Would that we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Egypt, where we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For you have brought us forth to this wilderness, and to kill this whole assembly with hunger. And then said Yahweh to Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moses and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, At evening, then you shall know that Yahweh has brought you out from the land of Egypt. And in the morning, then you shall see the splendor of Yahweh, for that he hears your murmurings against him. And what are we that you murmur against us? And Moses said, This shall be, when Yahweh shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For Yahweh hears your murmurings which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against Yahweh. And Moses spoke to Aaron, Say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, Come near before Yahweh, for he has heard your murmurings. And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the splendor of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, In the evenings you shall eat flesh, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. And it came to pass that at evening the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay round about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw, they said one to another, It is manna, for they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, This is the bread which Yahweh has given you to eat. This is the thing which Yahweh has commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man, according to the number of your persons. Take you every man for them which are in his tents. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered, some more, some less. And when they did measure it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that had gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. And Moses said, Let no man leave of it till the morning. Nevertheless they did not listen to Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was angry with them. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun grew hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said to them, This is that which Yahweh has said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath to Yahweh. Bake that which you will bake today, and boil what you will boil, and that which remains over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, as Moses bid them. And it did not stink, neither was there any worm in it. And Moses said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass, there went out some of the people on the 7th day to gather, and they found none. And Yahweh said to Moses, How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that Yahweh has given you the Sabbath, therefore he gives you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide you, every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. And so the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Israel called the name of it manna, and it was like coriander seed, white. And the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And Moses said, This is the thing which Yahweh commands. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that you may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, Take a pot, and put an omer full of manna in it, and lay it up before Yahweh, to be kept for your generations. As Yahweh commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony, to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years, till they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came to the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 17. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin, after their journeys, according to the commandment of Yahweh, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses, and said, Give us water, that we may drink. And Moses said to them, Why do you chide with me? Wherefore do you tempt Yahweh? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses, and said, Wherefore is this, that you has brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? Moses cried to Yahweh, saying, What shall I do to this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And Yahweh said to Moses, Go on before the people, and take with you of the elders of Israel, and your rod which you struck the river with, take it in your hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there upon the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and there shall come water out of it, so that the people may drink. Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted Yahweh, saying, Is Yahweh among us or not? Then came Amalek, and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, Choose us out men, and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side, the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And Yahweh said to Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar, and called the name of it Yahweh Nisi. For, he said, because Yahweh has sworn that Yahweh will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 18. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel his people, and that Yahweh had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land, and the name of the other was Eleazar, for the Elohim of my father, said he, was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses into the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of Elohim. And he said to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am come to you, and your wife, and her 2 sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and bowed before him, and kissed him, and they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that Yahweh had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them along the way, and how Yahweh delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which Yahweh had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be Yahweh, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all Elohim, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for Elohim. And Aaron came, and all the elders of Israel, to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before Yahweh. And it came to pass on the next day that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning to the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that you do to the people? Why do you sit by yourself alone, and all the people stand with you from morning to evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, Because the people come to me to inquire of Yahweh. When they have a matter, they come to me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of Yahweh and his laws. And Moses' father-in-law said to him, The thing that you do is not good. You will surely wear away, both you and this people that are with you, for this thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to perform it yourself alone. Listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and Yahweh shall be with you. Be you for the people a representative of Yahweh, that you may bring the causes to Yahweh, and you shall teach them ordinances and laws. You shall show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, you shall provide out of all the people able men, such as fear Yahweh, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them, to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s and rulers of 10s, and let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for yourself, and they shall bear the burden with you. If you shall do this thing, and Yahweh command you so, then you shall be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. And so Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought to Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 19. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up to Elohim, and Yahweh called to him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. And Moses came, and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together, and said, All that Yahweh has spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people to Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Moses, Lo, I come to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. And Moses told the words of the people to Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Moses, Go to the people, and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the 3rd day. For the 3rd day Yahweh will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And you shall set bounds to the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that you do not go up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever touches the mount shall surely be put to death. There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned, or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come up to the mount. And Moses went down from the mount to the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, Be ready for the 3rd day. Do not come at your wives. And it came to pass on the 3rd day in the morning, that there were thunders and lightnings, and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with Yahweh. And they stood at the outer part of the mount. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because Yahweh descended upon it in fire, and the smoke of it ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long, and grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and Yahweh answered him with a voice. And Yahweh came down upon Mount Sinai, on the top of the mount, and Yahweh called Moses up to the top of the mount. And Moses went up. And Yahweh said to Moses, Go down, charge the people, lest they break through to Yahweh to gaze, and many of them perish. And let the priests also, which come near to Yahweh, sanctify themselves, lest Yahweh break forth upon them. And Moses said to Yahweh, The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you charged us, saying, Set bounds around the mount, and sanctify it. And Yahweh said to them, Away, get you down, and you shall come up, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to Yahweh, lest he break forth upon them. And so Moses went down to the people and spoke to them. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 20. And Yahweh spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other Elohim before me. You shall not make to you any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am jealous visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy to thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor, and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not cover your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is your neighbor's. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw, they removed themselves and stood afar off. And they said to Moses, You speak with us, and we will hear, but do not let Yahweh speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said to the people, Do not fear, for Yahweh is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, so that you do not sin. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near to the thick darkness where Yahweh was. And Yahweh said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, You've seen that I've talked with you from heaven. You shall not make with me Elohim of silver, neither shall you make to you Elohim of gold. An altar of earth you shall make to me, and shall sacrifice upon it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In all places where I record my name I will come to you, and I will bless you. And if you will make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone, for if you lift up a tool upon it, you have polluted it. Neither shall you go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness be not discovered upon it. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 21. Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free, for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and if she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free, then his master shall bring him to the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. And if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the manservants do. If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her to a strange nation he shall have no power, seeing he has dealt deceitfully with her. And if he have betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, her food, her clothing, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. And if he does not do these 3 to her, then shall she go out free without money. He that strikes a man, so that he die, shall be surely put to death. And if a man does not lie in wait, but Yahweh deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint you a place where he shall run to. But if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor, to slay him with guile, you shall take him from my altar, that he may die. And he that strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And he that steals a man and sells him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. And he that cursed his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And if men strive together, and one strikes another with a stone or with a fist, and he does not die, but keeps his bed, if he rise again and walks abroad upon his staff, then shall he that struck him be clear. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. And if a man strike his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he continues a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. If men strive, and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follows, he shall surely be punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. And if any mischief follow, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. And if a man strikes the eye of his servant, or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. And if he knocks out his man's servant's tooth, or his maid's servant's tooth, he shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. If an ox gore a man or a woman, that they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be rid of it. But if the ox were known to push with his horn in times past, as it has been testified to his owner, and he's not kept him in, but that he killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner also shall be put to death. If there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever is laid upon him, whether he have gored a son, or have gored a daughter, according to this judgment it shall be done to him. If the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit, and not cover it, and an ox or an ass falls into it, the owner of the pit shall make it good, and give money to the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. And if one man's ox hurt another's, that he die, then they shall sell the live ox, and divide the money of it, and the dead ox also they shall divide. Or if it be known that the ox has used to push in the times past, and his owner has not kept him in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead shall be his own. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 22. If a man shall steal an ox, or a sheep, and kill it, or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief be caught in the act, and be struck so that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be an ox or an ass or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man shall cause a field or a vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard, shall he make restitution. If fire break out, and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn, or the standing corn, or the field be consumed with it, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man shall deliver to his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought to the judges to see whether he has put his hand to his neighbor's goods. For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, or for ass, or for sheep, or clothing, or for any manner of lost thing, which another challenges to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double to his neighbor. If a man deliver to his neighbor an ass, or an ox, or a sheep, or any beast, to keep, and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeing it, then shall an oath of Yahweh be between them both, that he has not put his hand to his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept of it, and he shall not make it good. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution to the owner of it. If it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness, and he shall not make good that which is torn. And if a man borrow anything of his neighbor's, and it be hurt or die, the owner of it being not with it, he shall surely make it good. But if the owner of it be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be a hired thing, it came for his hire. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her to him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. You shall not suffer a witch to live. Whosoever lies with a beast shall surely be put to death. He that sacrifices to any Elohim, except to Yahweh only, he shall surely be utterly destroyed. You shall neither vex a stranger, nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall grow hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend any money to any of my people that is poor because of you, you shall not be to them as a usurer, neither shall you lay upon him usury. If you at all take your neighbor's clothing for pledge, you shall deliver it to him by the going down of the sun, for that is his covering only. It is his clothing for his skin. Where will he sleep without it? And it shall come to pass, when he cries to me, that I will hear, for I am gracious. You shall not revile the Elohim, nor curse the ruler of your people. You shall not delay to offer the first of your ripe fruits, and of your liquors. The firstborn of your sons shall you give to me. Likewise shall you do with your oxen and with your sheep. 7 days it shall be with his mother, and on the 8th day he shall give it to me. And you shall be holy men to me. Neither shall you eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. You shall cast it to the dogs. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 23. You shall not receive a false report. Put not your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil. Neither shall you speak in a cause to prolong, following many to stretch out judgment. Neither shall you glorify a poor man in his strife. If you meet your enemy's ox or his ass going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. If you see the ass of him that hates you lying under his burden, and would forbear to help him, you shall surely help with him. You shall not prolong the judgment of your poor in his strife. Keep you far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous do not you slay, for I will not justify the wicked. And you shall take no gift, for the gift blinds the wise, and perverts the words of the righteous. Also, you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing that you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And 6 years you shall sow your land, and shall gather in the fruits of it. But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie still, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner you shall deal with your vineyard, and with your olive yard. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your ass may rest, and the son of your handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. And in all that I have said to you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other Elohim, neither let it be heard out of your mouth. 3 times you shall keep a feast to me in the year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it you came out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when you have gathered in your labors out of the field, 3 times in the year, all your males shall appear before the sovereign Yahweh. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain till the morning. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of Yahweh your Elohim. You shall not boil a kid in his mother's milk. Behold, I send a messenger before you to keep you in the way, and to bring you to the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Do not provoke him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if you shall indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies, and an adversary to your adversaries. For my messenger shall go before you, and bring you in to the Amorites, and to the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. You shall not bow down to their Elohim, nor serve them, nor do after their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them, and break down their images. And you shall serve Yahweh your Elohim, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of you. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in your land. The number of your days I will fulfill. I will send my fear before you, and will destroy all the people to whom you shall come, and I will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. And I will send hornets in front of you, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before you. And I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field multiply against you. By little and little I will drive them out from in front of you, until you are increased and inherit the land. And I will set your boundaries from the Red Sea even to the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert to the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out from in front of you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their Elohim. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their Elohim, it will surely be a snare to you. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 24. And he said to Moses, Come up to Yahweh, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship you from afar. And Moses alone shall come near Yahweh, but they shall not come near, neither shall the people go up with him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of Yahweh, and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice, and said, All the words which Yahweh has said, we will do. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh, and rose up early in the morning, and built an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen to Yahweh. And Moses took half of the blood, put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant, and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, All that Yahweh has said will we do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood, and sprinkled it upon the people, and said, Behold the blood of the covenant, which Yahweh has made with you concerning all these words. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the Elohim of Israel, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in its clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he did not lay his hand. Also they saw Elohim, and did eat and drink. And Yahweh said to Moses, Come up to me to the mount, and be there, and I will give you tables of stone, and a law, and commandments of which I have written, that you may teach them. And Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of Yahweh. And he said to the elders, Stay here for us, until we come again to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come to them. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the splendor of Yahweh abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the splendor of Yahweh was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud, and got him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 25. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering. Of every man that gives it willingly with his heart you shall take my offering. And this is the offering which you shall take of them: gold, and silver, and brass, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, and goat's hair, and ram's skins dyed red, and badger skins, and acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for anointing oil, and for sweet incense, onyx stones, and stones to be set in the ephod, and in the breastplate. And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. According to all that I show you, after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all the instruments of it, even so shall you make. And they shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2 cubits and a half shall be the length of it, and a cubit and a half the breadth of it, and a cubit and a half the height of it. And you shall overlay it with pure gold. Inside and outside shall you overlay it, and shall make upon it a crown of gold round about. And you shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and to put them in the 4 corners of it. And 2 rings shall be in the one side of it, and 2 rings in the other side of it. And you shall make staves of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And you shall put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark, that the ark may be borne with them. The staves shall be in the rings of the ark, they shall not be taken from it. And you shall put into the ark the testimony which I shall give you. And you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits shall be the length of it, and a cubit and a half the breadth of it. And you shall make 2 cherubims of gold, of beaten work shall you make them, and the 2 ends of the mercy seat, and make 1 cherub on the one end, and the other cherub on the other end. Even of the mercy seat shall you make the cherubims on the 2 ends of it. And the cherubims shall stretch forth their wings on high, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and their faces shall look one to another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubims be. And you shall put the mercy seat above upon the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I shall give you. And there I will meet with you, and I will commune with you from above the mercy seat, and from between the 2 cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony of all things which I will give you in commandment to the children of Israel. You shall also make a table of acacia wood. 2 cubits shall be the length of it, and a cubit the breadth of it, and a cubit and a half the height of it. And you shall overlay it with pure gold, and make to it a crown of gold round about. And you shall make to it a border of a hand breadth round about, and you shall make a golden crown to the border of it round about. And you shall make for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings in the 4 corners that are on the 4 feet of it. Over against the border shall the rings be for places of the staves to bear the table. And you shall make the staves of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, that the table may be borne with them. And you shall make the dishes of it, and the spoons of it, and covers of it, and the bowls of it to cover with. Of pure gold shall you make them. And you shall set upon the table shewbread before me always. And you shall make a candlestick of pure gold. Of beaten work shall the candlestick be made. His shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knobs, and his flowers shall be of the same. And 6 branches shall come out of the sides of it, 3 branches of the candlestick out of the one side, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side. 3 bowls made like to almonds, with a knob and a flower in one branch, and 3 bowls made like almonds in the other branch, with a knob and a flower, so in the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick. And in the candlestick shall be 4 bowls made like to almonds, with their knobs and their flowers, and there shall be a knob under 2 branches of the same, and a knob under 2 branches of the same, and a knob under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that proceed out of the candlestick. Their knobs and their branches shall be of the same. All of it shall be one beaten work of pure gold. And you shall make the 7 lamps of it, and they shall light the lamps of it, that they may give light over against it. And the tongs of it, and the snuff dishes of it, shall be of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold shall he make it with all these vessels. And look that you make them after their pattern which was showed you in the mount. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 26. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet. With cherubims of cunning work shall you make them. The length of 1 curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the breadth of 1 curtain 4 cubits, and every one of the curtains shall have 1 measure. The 5 curtains shall be coupled together one to another, and other 5 curtains shall be coupled one to another. And you shall make loops of blue upon the edge of the 1 curtain from the selvage in the coupling, and likewise shall you make in the uttermost edge of another curtain in the coupling of the second. 50 loops shall you make in the 1 curtain, and 50 loops shall you make in the edge of the curtain that is in the coupling of the second, so that the loops may take hold one of another. And you shall make 50 hooks of gold, and couple the curtains together with the hooks, and it shall be 1 tabernacle. And you shall make curtains of goat's hair to be a covering upon the tabernacle. 11 curtains shall you make. The length of 1 curtain shall be 30 cubits, and the breadth of 1 curtain 4 cubits. And the 11 curtains shall be all of 1 measure. And you shall couple 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves, and shall double the 6th curtain on the forefront of the tabernacle. And you shall make 50 loops on the edge of the 1 curtain that is outmost in the coupling, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain which couples the second. And you shall make 50 hooks of brass, and put the hooks into the loops, and couple the tent together, that it may be one. And the remnant that remains of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the backside of the tabernacle. And a cubit on the one side, and a cubit on the other side of that which remains in the length of the curtains of the tent, it shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle on this side and on that side, to cover it. And you shall make a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering above of badgers' skins. And you shall make boards for the tabernacle of acacia wood standing up. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits shall be the breadth of 1 board. 2 tenons shall there be in 1 board, set in order one against the other. Thus shall you make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And you shall make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards on the south side, southward. And you shall make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under 1 board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons, and for the second side of the tabernacle on the north side 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under 1 board, and 2 sockets under another board, and for the sides of the tabernacle westward you shall make 6 boards. And 2 boards shall you make for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides, and they shall be coupled together beneath, and they shall be coupled together above the head of it to 1 ring. Thus shall it be for them both. They shall be for the 2 corners. And they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under 1 board, and 2 sockets under another board. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle and for the 2 sides westward. And the middle bar in the midst of the boards shall reach from end to end. And you shall overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold for places for the bars, and you shall overlay the bars with gold. And you shall rear up the tabernacle according to the fashion of it which was showed you in the mount. And you shall make a veil of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen of cunning work. With cherubims shall it be made, and you shall hang it upon 4 pillars of acacia wood overlaid with gold. Their hooks shall be of gold, upon the 4 sockets of silver. And you shall hang up the veil under the hooks, that you may bring in there within the veil the ark of the testimony. And the veil shall divide to you between the holy place and the most holy. And you shall put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. And you shall set the table outside of the veil, and the candlestick over against the table on the south side of the tabernacle toward the south. And you shall put the table on the north side. And you shall make a hanging for the door of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needlework. And you shall make for the hanging 5 pillars of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And their hooks shall be of gold, and you shall cast 5 sockets of brass for them. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 27. And you shall make an altar of acacia wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad. The altar shall be 4 square, and the height of it shall be 3 cubits. And you shall make the horns of it upon the 4 corners of it. His horns shall be of the same, and you shall overlay it with brass. And you shall make his pans to receive his ashes, and his shovels, and his basins, and his flesh hooks, and his fire pans, all the vessels of it you shall make of brass. And you shall make for it a grate of network of brass, and upon the net shall you make 4 brazen rings in the 4 corners of it. And you shall put it under the compass of the altar beneath, that the net may be even to the midst of the altar. And you shall make staves for the altar, staves of acacia wood, and overlay them with brass. And the staves shall be put into the rings, and the staves shall be upon the 2 sides of the altar to bear it. Hollow with boards shall you make it, as it was showed you in the mount, so shall they make it. And you shall make the court of the tabernacle. For the south side southward, hangings for the court of fine twined linen of 100 cubits long for one side. And the 20 pillars of it, and their 20 sockets, shall be of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And likewise for the north side in length there shall be hangings of 100 cubits long, and his 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the breadth of the court on the west side shall be hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. And the breadth of the court on the east side eastward shall be 50 cubits. The hangings of one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And on the other side, hangings 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And for the gate of the court, a hanging of 20 cubits, of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen, wrought with needlework. Their pillars shall be 4, and their sockets 4. All the pillars round about the court shall be filleted with silver. Their hooks shall be of silver, and their sockets brass. The length of the court 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 everywhere, and the height 5 cubits, of fine twined linen, their sockets of brass. All the vessels of the tabernacle in all the service of it, and all the pins of it, and all the pins of the court, shall be of brass. And you shall command the children of Israel that they bring you pure oil of olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamp to burn always. In the tabernacle of the congregation, outside the veil which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall order it from evening to morning before Yahweh, a statute forever to their generations on the behalf of the children of Israel. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 28. And take to you Aaron your brother, and his sons with him, from among the children of Israel, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. And you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother for dignity and for beauty. And you shall speak to all that are wise-hearted, whom I filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, a mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother and his sons, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. And they shall take gold, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, And they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, and of purple, scarlet, and fine twined linen with cunning work. It shall have the 2 shoulder pieces of it joined at the 2 edges of it, and so shall it be joined together. And the curious girdle of the ephod, which is upon it, shall be of the same, according to the work of it, even of gold, of blue, of purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. And you shall take 2 onyx stones, and grave upon them the names of the children of Israel, 6 of their names on one stone, and 6 names of the rest on the other stone, according to their birth. With the work of an engraver in stone, the engravings of a signet, shall you engrave the 2 stones with the names of the children of Israel. You shall make them to be set in settings of gold. And you shall put the 2 stones upon the shoulders of the ephod for stones of memorial to the children of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before Yahweh upon his 2 shoulders for a memorial. And you shall make settings of gold, and 2 chains of pure gold at the ends. Of resined work shall you make them, and fasten the resined chains to the settings. And you shall make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work. After the work of the ephod shall you make it, of gold, of blue, purple, scarlet, and of fine twined linen shall you make it. 4 square it shall be, being doubled. A span shall be the length of it, and a span shall be the breadth of it. And you shall set it in settings of stones, 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, a carbuncle. This shall be the first row. The second row shall be an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. The fourth row a beryl, and an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold in their settings. And the stones shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12, according to their names, the engravings of a signet. Every one with his name shall they be according to the 12 tribes. And you shall make upon the breastplate chains at the ends of resined work of pure gold. And you shall make upon the breastplate 2 rings of gold, and shall put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And you shall put the 2 resined chains of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. And the other 2 ends of the 2 resined chains you shall fasten in the 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod before it. And you shall make 2 rings of gold, and you shall put them upon the 2 ends of the breastplate in the border of it, which is on the side of the ephod inward. And 2 other rings of gold you shall make, and shall put them on the 2 sides of the ephod underneath, toward the forepart of it, over against the other coupling of it, above the curious girdle of the ephod. And they shall bind the breastplate by the rings of it to the rings of the ephod with a lace of blue, that it may be above the curious girdle of the ephod, and that the breastplate be not loosed from the ephod. And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, when he goes into the holy place, for a memorial before Yahweh continually. And you shall put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart, when he goes in before Yahweh. And Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before Yahweh continually. And you shall make the robe of the ephod all of blue. And there shall be a hole in the top of it, in the midst of it. It shall have a binding of woven work round about the whole of it, as it were mail, that it be not torn. And beneath, upon the hem of it, you shall make pomegranates of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, round about the hem of it, and bells of gold between them round about. A golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate, upon the hem of the robe round about. And it shall be upon Aaron to minister, and his sound shall be heard when he goes into the holy place before Yahweh, and when he comes out, so that he dies not. And you shall make a plate of pure gold, and grave upon it, like the engravings of a signet, holiness to Yahweh. And you shall put it on a blue lace, that it may be upon the mitre, upon the forefront of the mitre it shall be. And it shall be upon Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the holy things, which the children of Israel shall hallow in all their holy gifts. And it shall always be upon his forehead, that they may be accepted before Yahweh. And you shall embroider the coat of fine linen, And you shall make the mitre of fine linen, and you shall make the girdle of needlework. And for Aaron's sons you shall make coats, and make for them girdles, and bonnets shall you make for them, for dignity and for beauty. And you shall put them upon Aaron your brother, and his sons with him, and shall anoint them, and consecrate them, and sanctify them, that they may minister to me in the priest's office. And you shall make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness. From the loins even to the thighs shall they reach. And they shall be upon Aaron and upon his sons when they come into the tabernacle of the congregation, or when they come near to the altar to minister in the holy place, that they bear not iniquity and die. A statute forever to him and his seed after him. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 29. And this is the thing that you shall do to them to hallow them, to minister to me in the priest's office. Take 1 young bullock, and 2 rams without blemish, and unleavened bread, and cakes unleavened, tempered with oil, and wafers unleavened, anointed with oil. Wheat and flour shall you make them of. And you shall put them into 1 basket, and bring them in the basket, with the bullock and the 2 rams. And Aaron and his sons you shall bring to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall wash them with water. And you shall take the garments, and put upon Aaron the coat, and the robe of the ephod, and the breastplate, and gird him with the curious girdle of the ephod. And you shall put the mitre upon his head, and put the holy crown upon the mitre. Then shall you take the anointing oil, and pour it upon his head, and anoint him. And you shall bring his sons, and put coats upon them. And you shall gird them with girdles, Aaron and his sons, and put the bonnets on them. And the priest's office shall be theirs for a perpetual state. And you shall consecrate Aaron and his sons. And you shall cause a bullock to be brought before the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aaron and his sons shall put their hands upon the head of the bullock. And you shall kill the bullock before Yahweh by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And you shall take the blood of the bullock, and put it upon the horns of the altar with your finger, and pour all the blood beside the bottom of the altar. And you shall take all the fat that covers the inwards, and the caul above the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat upon them, and burn them upon the altar. But the flesh of the bullock, and his skin, and his dung, shall you burn with fire outside the camp. It is a sin offering. You shall also take 1 ram, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands upon the head of the ram. And you shall slay the ram, and you shall take his blood, and sprinkle it round about upon the altar. And you shall cut the ram in pieces, and wash the inwards of him and his legs, and put them to his pieces and to his head. And you shall burn the whole ram upon the altar. It is a burnt offering to Yahweh. It is a sweet savor, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And you shall take the other ram, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands upon the head of the ram. Then shall you kill the ram, and take of his blood, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of Aaron, and upon the tip of the right ear of his sons, and upon the thumb of their right hand, and upon the great toe of their right foot, and sprinkle the blood upon the altar round about. And you shall take of the blood that is upon the altar, and of the anointing oil, and sprinkle it upon Aaron, and upon his garments, and upon his sons, and upon the garments of his sons with him. And he shall be hallowed, and his garments, and his sons' garments with him. Also you shall take of the ram the fat and the rump, and the fat that covers the inwards, and the caul above the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, and the right shoulder, for it is a ram of consecration. And 1 loaf of bread, and 1 cake of oiled bread, and 1 wafer out of the basket of the unleavened bread that is before Yahweh. And you shall put all in the hands of Aaron, and in the hands of his sons, and shall wave them for a wave offering before Yahweh. And you shall receive them of their hands, and burn them upon the altar for a burnt offering, for a sweet savor before Yahweh. It is an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And you shall take the breast of the ram of Aaron's consecration, and wave it for a wave offering before Yahweh, and it shall be your part. And you shall sanctify the breast of the wave offering, and the shoulder of the heave offering, which is waved, and which is heaved up, of the ram of the consecration, even of that which is for Aaron, and of that which is for his sons. And it shall be Aaron's and his sons by a statute forever from the children of Israel. For it is a heave offering, and it shall be a heave offering from the children of Israel of the sacrifice of their peace offerings, even their heave offering to Yahweh. And the holy garments of Aaron shall be his sons after him, to be anointed therein, and to be consecrated in them. And that son that is priest in his stead shall put them on 7 days, when he comes into the tabernacle of the congregation to minister in the holy place. And you shall take the ram of the consecration, and boil his flesh in the holy place. And Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram, and the bread that is in the basket, by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And they shall eat those things wherewith the atonement was made, to consecrate and to sanctify them. But a stranger shall not eat of it, because they are holy. And if any of the flesh of the consecrations, or of the bread, remain to the morning, then you shall burn the remainder with fire. It shall not be eaten, because it is holy. And thus shall you do to Aaron and to his sons, according to all the things which I have commanded you. 7 days shall you consecrate them. And you shall offer every day a bullock for a sin offering, for atonement. And you shall cleanse the altar when you have made an atonement for it, and you shall anoint it to sanctify it. 7 days you shall make an atonement for the altar, and sanctify it, and it shall be an altar most holy. Whatsoever touches the altar shall be holy. Now this is that which you shall offer upon the altar: 2 lambs of the first year, day by day, continually. The one lamb shall you offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer but at evening. And with the one lamb 1/10 deal of flour, mingled with the 4th part of a hin of beaten oil, and the 4th part of a hin of wine for a drink offering. And the other lamb you shall offer at evening, and shall do thereto according to the meal offering of the morning, and according to the drink offering of it, and for a sweet savor, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. A continual burnt offerings throughout your generations at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before Yahweh, where I will meet you, to speak there to you. And there I will meet with the children of Israel. And the tabernacle shall be sanctified by my splendor. And I will sanctify the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar. I will sanctify also both Aaron and his sons to minister to me in the priest's office. And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will be their Elohim. And they shall know that I am Yahweh their Elohim, that brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, that I may dwell among them. I am Yahweh their Elohim. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 30. And you shall make an altar to burn incense upon. Of acacia wood shall you make it. A cubit shall be the length of it, and a cubit the breadth of it. 4 square shall it be, and 2 cubits shall be the height of it. The horns of it shall be of the same. And you shall overlay it with pure gold, the top of it, and the sides of it round about, and the horns of it, and you shall make unto it a crown of gold round about. And 2 golden rings shall you make to it under the crown of it, by the 2 corners of it, upon the 2 sides of it shall you make it, and they shall be for places for the staves to bear it. And you shall make the staves of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And you shall put it before the veil that is by the ark of the testimony, before the mercy seat that is over the testimony, where I will meet with you. And Aaron shall burn upon it sweet incense every morning. When he dresses the lamps, he shall burn incense upon it. And when Aaron lights the lamps at evening, he shall burn incense upon it, a perpetual incense before Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall offer no strange incense upon it, nor burnt sacrifice, nor meal offering, neither shall ye bore drink offering upon it. And Aaron shall make an atonement upon the horns of it once a year, with the blood of the sin offering of atonements. Once in the year shall he make atonement upon it throughout your generations. It is most holy to Yahweh. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, When you take the sum of the children of Israel after their number, then shall they give every man a ransom for his soul to Yahweh, when you number them, that there be no plague among them when you number them. This shall they give, every one that passes among them that are numbered, half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary. A shekel is 20 gerahs. A half shekel shall be the offering of Yahweh. Every one that passes among them that are numbered, from 20 years old and above, shall give an offering to Yahweh. The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than half a shekel, when they give an offering to Yahweh to make an atonement for your souls. And you shall take the atonement money of the children of Israel, and shall appoint it for the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, that it may be a memorial to the children of Israel before Yahweh, to make an atonement for your souls. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, You shall also make a laver of brass, and his foot also of brass, to wash with. And you shall put it between the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, and you shall put water in it. For Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet in it. When they go into the tabernacle of the congregation, they will wash with water, so that they do not die. Or when they come near to the altar to minister, to burn offerings made by fire to Yahweh. So they shall wash their hands and their feet, so that they die not. And it shall be a statute forever to them, to him and to his seed throughout their generations. Moreover, Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Take you also unto you principal spices, of pure myrrh, 500 shekels, and of sweet cinnamon, half so much, 250 shekels, and of sweet calamus, 250, and of cassia, 500 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, and of oil of olive, a hin, and shall make it an oil of holy ointment, an ointment compound after the art of the apothecary. It shall be a holy anointing oil. And you shall anoint the tabernacle of the congregation with it, and the ark of the testimony, and the table, and all his vessels, and the candlestick and his vessels, and the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all his vessels, and the laver and his foot. And you shall sanctify them, that they may be most holy. Whatsoever touches them shall be holy. And you shall anoint Aaron and his sons, and consecrate them, that they may be minister to me in the priest's office. And you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, This shall be a holy anointing oil to me throughout your generations. Upon man's flesh shall it not be poured, neither shall you make any other like it. After the composition of it, it is holy, and shall be holy to you. Whosoever compounds any like it, or whosoever puts any of it upon a stranger, shall even be cut off from his people. And Yahweh said to Moses, Take to you sweet spices, stacte, and onycha, and galbanum, these sweet spices with pure frankincense. Of each shall there be a like weight, and you shall make it a perfume, a confection after the art of the apothecary, tempered together, pure and holy. And you shall beat some of it very small, and put some of it before the testimony in the tabernacle of the congregation, where I will meet with you. It shall be to you most holy. And as for the perfume which you shall make, ye shall not make to yourselves according to the composition of it. It shall be to you holy for Yahweh. Whosoever shall make like to that, to smell thereto, shall even be cut off from his people. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 31. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the spirit of Elohim, in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship, to devise cunning works, to work in gold and in silver and in brass, and in cutting of stones, to set them, and in carving of timber, to work in all manner of workmanship. And I, behold, I have given with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. And in the hearts of all that are wise-hearted I have put wisdom, that they may make all that I have commanded you. The tabernacle of the congregation, and the ark of the testimony, and the mercy seat that is thereupon, and all the furniture of the tabernacle, and the table and his furniture, and the pure candlestick with all his furniture, and the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all his furniture, and the laver and his foot, and the cloths of service, and the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garment of his sons to minister in the priest's office, and the anointing oil and sweet incense for the holy place, according to all that I've commanded you shall they do. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak you also to the children of Israel, saying, Truly my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh, that does sanctify you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy to you. Every one that defiles it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work on the Sabbath, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. Whosoever does any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave to Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of Yahweh. End of chapter. Exodus, chapter 32. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron, and said to him, Up, make us Elohim, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And Aaron said to them, Break off the gold earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them to Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, These are your Elohim of Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to Yahweh. And they rose up early on the next day, and offered burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. And Yahweh said to Moses, Go, get you down, for your people which you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They've turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They've made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed unto it, and said, These are your Elohim, O Israel, which have brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And Yahweh said to Moses, I have seen this people, and it, behold, is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may grow hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation. And Moses besought Yahweh his Elohim, and said, Yahweh, why does your wrath grow hot against your people, which you have brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, For mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, and repent of this evil against your people. Remember Abraham and Isaac and Israel, your servants, to whom you swear by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And Yahweh repented of the evil which he thought to do to his people. And Moses turned, and went down from the mount, and the 2 tables of the testimony were in his hand, the tables which were written on both their sides, on the one side and on the other side where they were written. And the tables were the work of Yahweh, and the writing was the writing of Yahweh, graven upon the tables. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, There's a noise of war in the camp. And he said, It is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. And it came to pass, as soon as he came near to the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger grew hot. And he cast the tables out of his hands, and broke them from beneath the mount. And he took the calf which they had made, and burnt it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and strewed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, What did this people to you, that you have brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, Let not the anger of my master grow hot. You know the people, that they are set on mischief. For they said to me, Make us Elohim, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man which brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, Whosoever has any gold, let him break it off. And so they gave it me. And then I cast it into the fire, and out came this calf. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked to their shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, Who is on Yahweh's side? Let him come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him. And he said to them, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, Put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. For Moses had said, Consecrate yourselves today to Yahweh, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. And it came to pass on the next day that Moses said to the people, You have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to Yahweh. Perhaps I shall make an atonement for your sin. And Moses returned to Yahweh and said, this people have sinned a great sin, and have made them Elohim of gold. Yet now, if ye will forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I beg of you, out of your book which you've written. And Yahweh said to Moses, Whosoever has sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Therefore, now go, lead the people to the place of which I've spoken to you. Behold, my messenger shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. And Yahweh plagued the people, because they made the calf which Aaron made. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 33. And Yahweh said to Moses, Depart, and go up from here, you and the people which you've brought up out of the land of Egypt, to the land which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, Unto your seed I will give it. And I will send a messenger before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, and the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in the midst of you, for you are a stiff-necked people, lest I consume you along the way. And when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned. And no man did put on him his ornaments. For Yahweh had said to Moses, Say to the children of Israel, You are a stiff-necked people. I will come up into the midst of you in a moment and consume you. Therefore now put off your ornaments from you, that I may know what to do to you. And the children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments by the Mount Horeb. And Moses took the tabernacle and pitched it outside the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. And it came to pass, every one which sought Yahweh went out to the tabernacle of the congregation, which was outside the camp. And it came to pass, when Moses went out to the tabernacle, all the people rose up, and stood every man at his tent door, and looked along after Moses until he was gone to the tabernacle. And it came to pass, as Moses entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and Yahweh talked with Moses. And all the people saw the cloudy pillar stand at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose up and worshipped every man in his tent door. And Yahweh spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. And he turned again into the camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart out of the tabernacle. And Moses said to Yahweh, See, you say to me, Bring up this people, and you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I ask you, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. And he said, My presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest. And he said to him, If your presence does not go with me, do not carry us up from here. For wherein shall it be known here that I and your people have found grace in your sight? Is it not in that you go with us? So shall we be separated, I and your people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. And Yahweh said to Moses, I will do this thing also that you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. And he said, I beseech you, show me your splendor. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of Yahweh before you, and be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, You cannot see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. And Yahweh said, Look, there is a place near me, and you shall stand upon a rock, and it shall come to pass while my splendor passes by, that I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand while I pass by, and I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 34. And Yahweh said to Moses, Cut you 2 tables of stone like to the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables, which you broke. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me at the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with you, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mountain, neither let the flocks nor the herds feed before that mountain. And he cut 2 tables of stone, like to the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and went up to Mount Sinai, as Yahweh had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tablets of stone. And Yahweh descended in the cloud, and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of Yahweh. And Yahweh passed by before him, and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh El, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children, to the 3rd and to the 4th generation. And Moses made haste, and bowed his head toward the earth, and worshipped. And he said, If now I found grace in your sight, O Yahweh, let my Elohim, I pray you, go among us. For it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your inheritance. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant. Before all your people I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among which you are shall see the work of Yahweh. For it is a terrible thing that I will do with you. Observe you that which I command you this day. I drive out from before you the Amorite and the Canaanite, and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be for a snare in the midst of you. But you shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For you shall worship no other El. For Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous El. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their Elohim, and do sacrifice to their Elohim, and one calls you, and you eat of his sacrifice. And you take of their daughters to your sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their Elohim, and make your sons go a-whoring after their Elohim. You shall make you no molten Elohim. The feast of unleavened bread shall you keep. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, in the time of the month Abib. For in the month Abib you came out from Egypt. All that opened the womb is mine, and every firstling among your cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you do not redeem him, then you shall break his neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In earing time and in harvest you shall rest. And you shall observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. 3 times in the year shall all your men children appear before the sovereign Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before you, and enlarge your borders, neither shall any man desire your land, when you shall go up to appear before Yahweh your Elohim 3 times in the year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left to the morning. The first of the firstfruits of your land you shall bring to the house of Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall not boil a kid in his mother's milk. And Yahweh said to Moses, Write down these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. And he was there with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. And it came to pass, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai, with the 2 tablets of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. And Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. And afterward all the children of Israel came near, and he gave them in commandment all that Yahweh had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. Until Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil upon his face. But when Moses went in before Yahweh to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spoke to the children of Israel that which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone. And Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with him. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 35. And Moses gathered all the congregation of the children of Israel together, and said to them, These are the words which Yahweh has commanded, that you should do them. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day there shall be to you a holy day, a Sabbath of rest to Yahweh. Whosoever does work on that day shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day. And Moses spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which Yahweh commanded, saying, Take you from among you an offering to Yahweh. Whosoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it. An offering of Yahweh, gold and silver and brass and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram's skins dyed red, and badger's skins, and acacia wood, and oil for the light, and spices for anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, and onyx stones, and stones to be set for the ephod, and for the breastplate. And every wise-hearted among you shall come and make all that Yahweh has commanded. The tabernacle, his tent and his covering, his taches and his boards, his bars, his pillars and his sockets, the ark and the staves of it, with the mercy seat and the veil of the covering, the table and his staves, and all his vessels and the showbread, the candlesticks also for light, and his furniture and his lamps with the oil for the light, and the incense altar, and his staves, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the hanging for the door at the entering in of the tabernacle, the altar of burnt offering, with his brazen grate, his staves, and all his vessels, the laver and his foot, the hangings of the court, his pillars, and their sockets, and the hanging for the door of the court, the pins of the tabernacle, and the pins of the court, and their cords, the cloths of service, to do service in the holy place, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons, to minister in the priest's office. And all the congregation of the children of Israel departed from the presence of Moses, and they came, every one whose heart stirred him up, and every one whom his spirit made willing. And they brought Yahweh's offering to the work of the tabernacle of the congregation, for all his service, and for the holy garments. And they came, both men and women, as many as were willing-hearted, and brought bracelets, and earrings, and rings, and tablets, all jewels of gold, and every man that offered an offering of gold to Yahweh. And every man with whom was found blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, and goat's hair, and red skins of rams, and badgers' skins, brought them. Every one that did offer an offering of silver and brass brought Yahweh's offering. And every man with whom was found acacia wood for any work of the service brought it. And all the women that were wise-hearted did spin with their hands, and brought that which they had spun, both of blue and of purple, and of scarlet and of fine linen. And all the women whose hearts stirred them up in wisdom spun goat's hair. And the rulers brought onyx stones, and stones to be set, for the ephod and for the breastplate, and spice, and oil for the light, and for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense. The children of Israel brought a willing offering to Yahweh, every man and woman whose heart made them willing to bring for all manner of work which Yahweh had commanded to be made by the hand of Moses. And Moses said to the children of Israel, See, Yahweh has called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah. And he has filled him with the Spirit of Yahweh, in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship, and to devise curious works, to work in gold, and in silver, and in brass, and in the cutting of stones, to set them, and in carving of wood, to make any manner of cunning work. And he has put in his heart that he may teach, both he and Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. Them has he filled with wisdom of heart to work all manner of work, of the engraver, and of the cunning workman, and of the embroiderer, in blue, and in purple, in scarlet, and in fine linen, and of the weaver, even of them that do any work, and of those that devise cunning work. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 36. Then wrought Bezaleel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man, in whom Yahweh put wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all that Yahweh had commanded. And Moses called Bezaleel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man, in whose heart Yahweh had put wisdom, every one whose heart stirred him up to come to work up to do it. And they received of Moses all the offering, which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of the sanctuary, to make it with. And they brought yet to him free offerings every morning. And all the wise men that wrought all the work of the sanctuary came every man from his work which they made. And they spoke to Moses, saying, The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which Yahweh commanded to make. And Moses gave commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, Let neither man nor woman make any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. And so the people were restrained from bringing. For the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work to make it, and too much. And every wise-hearted man among them that wrought the work of the tabernacle made 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet. With cherubims of cunning work did he make them. The length of one curtain was 28 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. The curtains were all of one size. And he coupled the 5 curtains one to another, and the other 5 curtains he coupled one to another. And he made loops of blue on the edge of one curtain from the selvage in the coupling. Likewise he made in the uttermost side of another curtain, in the coupling of the second. 50 loops did he make in one curtain, and 50 loops made he in the edge of the curtain which was in the coupling of the second. The loops held one curtain to another. And he made 50 clasps of gold, and coupled the curtains one to another with the clasps. So it became one tabernacle. And he made curtains of goat's hair for the tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains did he make. The length of one curtain was 30 cubits, and 4 cubits was the breadth of one curtain. The 11 curtains were of one size. And he coupled 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And he made 50 loops upon the uttermost edge of the curtain in the coupling, and 50 loops did he make upon the edge of the curtain which couples the second. And he made 50 clasps of brass to couple the tent together, that it might be one. And he made a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering of badger skins above that. And he made boards for the tabernacle of acacia wood, standing up. The length of a board was 10 cubits, and the breadth of a board 1 cubit and a half. One board had 2 tenons, equally distant one from another. Thus did he make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And he made boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side southward, and 40 sockets of silver he made under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. And for the other side of the tabernacle, which is toward the north corner, he made 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And for the sides of the tabernacle westward he made 6 boards, and 2 boards did he make for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides. And they were coupled beneath, and coupled together at the head of them, to one ring. Thus he did to both of them in both the corners. And there were 8 boards, and their sockets were 16 sockets of silver, under every board 2 sockets. And he made bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the tabernacle for the sides westward. And he made the middle bar to shoot through the boards from one end to the other. And he overlaid the boards with gold, and made their rings of gold to be places for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. And he made a veil of blue and purple and scarlet and fine-twined linen. With cherubims did he make it of cunning work. And he made for them 4 pillars of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold, and he cast for them 4 sockets of silver. And he made a hanging for the tabernacle door of blue and purple and scarlet and fine-twined linen of needlework. And the 5 pillars of it, with their hooks, he overlaid their heads and their fillets with gold. But their 5 sockets were of brass. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 37. And Bezaleel made the ark of acacia wood. 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth of it, and 1 cubit and a half the height of it. And he overlaid it with pure gold inside and out, and made a crown of gold to it round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold, to be set by the 4 corners of it, even 2 rings upon the one side of it, and 2 rings upon the other side of it. And he made staves of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark, to bear the ark. And he made the mercy seat of pure gold. 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth of it. And he made 2 cherubims of gold. Beaten out of 1 piece did he make them, on the 2 ends of the mercy seat. 1 cherub on the end on this side, and another cherub on the other end on that side. Out of the mercy seat made he the cherubims on the 2 ends of it. And the cherubims spread out their wings on high, and covered with their wings over the mercy seat, with their faces one to another. Even to the mercy seatward were the faces of the cherubims. And he had made the table of acacia wood. 2 cubits was the length of it, and 1 cubit the breadth of it, and 1 cubit and a half the height of it. And he overlaid it with pure gold, and made for it a crown of gold round about. And he made for it a border of a handbreadth round about, and made a crown of gold for the border of it round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings upon the 4 corners that were in the 4 feet of it. Over against the border were the rings, the places for the staves to bear the table. And he made the staves of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold, to bear the table, And he made the vessels which were upon the table, his dishes, and his spoons, and his bowls, and his covers to cover with, of pure gold. And he made the candlestick of pure gold. Beaten work did he make the candlestick of. His shaft and his branch, his bowls, his knobs, and his flowers were of the same. And 6 branches going out of the sides of it, 3 branches of the candlestick out of the one side of it, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side of it. 3 bowls made after the fashion of almonds in one branch, a knob and a flower. And 3 bowls made like almonds in another branch, a knob and a flower. So throughout the 6 branches going out of the candlestick. And in the candlestick 4 bowls made like almonds, his knobs and his flowers. And a knob under 2 branches of the same, and a knob under 2 branches of the same, and a knob under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches going out of it. Their knobs and their branches were of the same. All of it was one beaten work of pure gold. And he made his 7 lamps, and his snuffers, and his snuff dishes of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold did he make it, and all the vessels of it. And he made the incense altar of acacia wood. The length of it was a cubit, and the breadth of it a cubit. It was 4 square. And 2 cubits was the height of it. The horns of it were of the same. And he overlaid it with pure gold, the top of it, and the sides of it round about, and the horns of it. Also he made to it a crown of gold round about. And he made 2 rings of gold for it under the crown of it, and by the 2 corners of it, upon the 2 sides of it, to be places for the staves to bear it with. And he made the staves of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he made the holy anointing oil, and the pure incense of sweet spices, according to the work of the apothecary. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 38. And he made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was the length of it, and 5 cubits the breadth of it. It was 4 square, and 3 cubits the height of it. And he made the horns of it on the 4 corners of it. The horns of it were of the same, and he overlaid it with brass. And he made all the vessels of the altar, the pots and the shovels and the basins and the flesh hooks and the fire pans, all the vessels of it he made of brass. And he made for the altar a brazen lattice work under the edge of it, downwards to the middle of it. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 ends of the grate of brass, to be places for the staves. And he made the staves of acacia wood, and overlaid them with brass. And he put the staves into the ring on the sides of the altar to bear it with. He made the altar hollow with boards. And he made the laver of brass, and the foot of it of brass, and the looking glasses of the women which assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he made the court on the south side southward. The hangings of the court were of fine twined linen, 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their brazen sockets 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the north side the hangings were 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their sockets of brass 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the west side were hangings of 50 cubits. Their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the east side eastward 50 cubits. The hangings of the one side of the gate were 15 cubits. Their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And for the other side of the court gate, on this hand and that hand, were hangings of 15 cubits. Their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. All the hangings of the court round about were of fine twined linen. And the sockets for the pillars were of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver, and the overlaying of their chapiters of silver, and all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the hanging for the gate of the court was needlework of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen, and 20 cubits was the length, and the height in the breadth was 5 cubits, answerable to the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4, and their sockets of brass 4. their hooks of silver, and the overlaying of their chapiters and their fillets of silver. And all the pins of the tabernacle and of the court round about were of brass. This is the sum of the tabernacle, even of the tabernacle of testimony, as it was counted, according to the commandment of Moses, for the service of the Levites, by the hand of Ithamar, son to Aaron the priest. And Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, made all that Yahweh commanded Moses. And with him was Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver, and a cunning workman, and an embroiderer in blue, and in purple, and in scarlet, and fine linen. All the gold that was occupied for the work, and all the work of the holy place, even the gold of the offering, was 29 talents, and 730 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. And the silver of them that were numbered of the congregation was 100 talents, and 1,760 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. A pekah for every man, that is, half a shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for every one that went to be numbered, from 20 years old and upward, for 600,000 and 3,550 men. And of the 100 talents of silver were cast the sockets of the sanctuary, and the sockets of the veil, 100 sockets of the 100 talents, a talent for a socket. And of the 1,775 shekels he made hooks for the pillars, and overlaid their chapiters, and filleted them. And the brass of the offering was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels. And with that he made the sockets to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the brazen altar, and the brazen grate for it, and all the vessels of the altar. And the sockets of the court round about, and the sockets of the court gate, and all the pins of the tabernacle, and all the pins of the court round about. End of chapter. Exodus, chapter 39. And of the blue and purple and scarlet they made cloths of service, to do service in the holy place, and made the holy garments for Aaron, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he made the ephod of gold, blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. And they did beat the gold into thin plates, and cut it into wires, to work it in the blue, and in the purple, and in the scarlet, and in the fine linen with cunning work. They made shoulder pieces for it, to couple it together. By the 2 edges was it coupled together. And the curious girdle of his ephod that was upon it was of the same, according to the work of it, of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And they wrought onyx stones set in filigree of gold, graven, as signets are graven, with the names of the children of Israel. And he put them on the shoulders of the ephod, stones for a memorial to the children of Israel, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he made the breastplate of cunning work, like the work of the ephod, of gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. It was 4 square. They made the breastplate double. A span was the length of it, and a span the breadth of it, being doubled. And they set it in 4 rows of stones. The first row was a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle. This was the first row. And the second row, an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row, a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They were enclosed in filigree of gold in their settings. And the stones were according to the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet, every one with his name according to the 12 tribes. And they made upon the breastplate chains at the ends, of wreathen work of pure gold. And they made 2 filigrees of gold, and 2 gold rings, and put the 2 rings in the 2 ends of the breastplate. And they put the 2 wreathen chains of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. And the 2 ends of the 2 wreathen chains they fastened in the 2 filigrees, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod before it. And they made 2 rings of gold, and put them on the two ends of the breastplate, upon the border of it, which was on the side of the ephod, inward. And they made 2 other golden rings, and put them on the 2 sides of the ephod underneath, toward the forepart of it, over against the other coupling of it, above the curious girdle of the ephod. And they did bind the breastplate by his rings to the rings of the ephod with a lace of blue, that it might be above the curious girdle of the ephod, and that the breastplate might not be loosed from the ephod, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he made the robe of the ephod of woven work, all of blue. And there was a hole in the midst of the robe, as the hole of a coat of mail, with a band round about the hole, that it should not tear. And they made upon the hems of the robe pomegranates of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and twined linen. And they made bells of pure gold, and put the bells between the pomegranates upon the hem of the robe, round about between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate, round about the hem of the robe, to minister in, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And they made coats of fine linen of woven work for Aaron and for his sons, and a mitre of fine linen, and goodly bonnets of fine linen, and linen breeches of fine twined linen, and a girdle of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet of needlework, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold, and wrote upon it a writing, like the engravings of a signet, Holiness to Yahweh. And they tied unto it a lace of blue, to fasten it on high upon the mitre, as Yahweh commanded Moses. Thus was all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation finished. And the children of Israel did according to all that Yahweh commanded Moses. So they did. And they brought the tabernacle to Moses, the tent and all his furniture, his taches, his boards, his bars, his pillars, and his sockets, and the covering of ram skins dyed red, and the covering of badger skins, and the veil of the covering, the ark of the testimony, and the staves of it, and the mercy seat, the table, and all the vessels of it, and the showbread, the pure candlestick, with the lamps of it, even with the lamps to be set in order, and all the vessels of it, and the oil for light, and the golden altar, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the hanging for the tabernacle door, the brazen altar, and his grate of brass, his staves, and all his vessels, and the laver, and his foot, the hangings of the court, his pillars, and his sockets, and the hanging for the court gate, his cords, and his pins, and all the vessels of the service of the tabernacle, for the tent of the congregation, the cloths of service, to do service in the holy place, and the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and his sons' garments to minister in the priest's office, according to all that Yahweh commanded Moses. So the children of Israel made all the work. And Moses did look upon all the work, and behold, they had done it as Yahweh had commanded, even so had they done it. And Moses blessed them. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 40. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, On the first day of the first month shall you set up the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, and you shall put in it the ark of the testimony, and cover the ark with the veil. And you shall bring in the table, and set in order the things that are to be set in order upon it. And you shall bring in the candlestick, and light the lamps of it. And you shall set the altar of gold for the incense in front of the ark of the testimony, and put the hanging of the door to the tabernacle. And you shall set the altar of the burnt offering in front of the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation. And you shall set the laver between the tent of the congregation and the altar, and shall put water in it. And you shall set up the court round about, and hang up the hanging at the court gate. And you shall take the anointing oil, and anoint the tabernacle and all that is in it, and shall hallow it, and all the vessels of it, and it shall be holy. And you shall anoint the altar of the burnt offering, and all his vessels, and sanctify the altar, and it shall be an altar most holy. And you shall anoint the laver in his foot, and sanctify it. And you shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and wash them with water. And you shall put upon Aaron the holy garments, and anoint him, and sanctify him, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. And you shall bring his sons, and clothe them with coats, and you shall anoint them, as you did anoint their father, that they may minister to me in the priest's office. For their anointing shall surely be an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. Thus did Moses. According to all that Yahweh commanded him, so he did. And it came to pass, in the 1st month of the 2nd year, on the 1st day of the month, that the tabernacle was set up. And Moses set up the tabernacle, and fastened his sockets, and set up the boards of it, and put in the bars of it, and reared up his pillars. And he spread abroad the tent over the tabernacle, and put the covering of the tent above upon it, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he took and put the testimony into the ark, and set the staves on the ark, and put the mercy seat above upon the ark. And he brought the ark into the tabernacle, and set up the veil of the covering, and covered the ark of the testimony, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he put the table in the tent of the congregation, upon the side of the tabernacle northward, outside the veil. And he set the bread in order upon it before Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Moses. And he put the candlestick in the tent of the congregation, over against the table on the side of the tabernacle southward. And he lit the lamps before Yahweh, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he put the golden altar in the tent of the congregation in front of the veil, and he burnt sweet incense on it, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he set up the hanging at the door of the tabernacle. And he put the altar of burnt offering by the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, and offered upon it the burnt offering and the meal offering, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he set the laver between the tent of the congregation and the altar, and put water there to wash with. And Moses and Aaron and his sons washed their hands and their feet there, when they went into the tent of the congregation, and when they came near to the altar, they washed, as Yahweh commanded Moses. And he set up the court round about the tabernacle and the altar, and set up the hanging of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the splendor of Yahweh filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud stayed thereon, and the splendor of Yahweh filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not journey till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of Yahweh was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel, throughout all their journeys. End of chapter. Brethren, and looked upon their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the 2nd day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to them that did the wrong, Why are you striking your neighbor? And he said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you did kill the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. And now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. And now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came near, and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, How is it that you are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock. And he said to his daughters, Where is he? And why is it that you have left the man? Call him, so that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up to Yahweh by reason of the bondage. And Yahweh heard their groaning, and Yahweh remembered his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and with Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Israel, and Yahweh had respect to them. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 3. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of Yahweh, to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called to him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not draw near here. Put off your shoes from off of your feet, for the place whereon you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Yahweh. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come to me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said to Yahweh, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a token to you, that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve Yahweh upon this mountain. And Moses said to Yahweh, Behold, when I come to the children of Israel, and shall say to them, The Elohim of your father has sent me to you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And Yahweh said to Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shall you say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. He said to Moses, Go in peace. And Yahweh said to Moses in Midian, Go, return to Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought after your life. And Moses took his wife and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of Yahweh in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moses, When you go to return to Egypt, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I put in your hand, but I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn, and I say to you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, even your firstborn. And it came to pass by the way, in the inn, that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. And then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, Surely a bloody husband you are to me. And so he let him go. And then she said, A bloody husband you are, because of the circumcision. And Yahweh said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mount of Yahweh and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of Yahweh who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 5. And afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, neither will I let Israel go. And they said, The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we ask you, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Egypt said to them, Why do you do this, Moses and Aaron? Let the people off from their work? Get you to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and you make them rest from their burdens. And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, You shall no more give the people straw to make brick as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And the number of the bricks which they did make before, you shall lay upon them. You shall not diminish any of it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our Elohim. Let their more work be laid upon the men, that they may labor in it, and let them not regard vain words. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spoke to the people, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go, get your own straw where you can find it. Yet not any of your work shall be diminished. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying, Fulfill your work, your daily tasks, as when there was straw. And the officer of the children of Israel, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and demanded, Why have you not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today, as before? And then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you so deal with us and with your servants? There is no straw given to your servants. And they say to us, Make brick, and behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is your own people. But he said, You are idle. You're idle. Therefore you say, Let us go and do sacrifice to Yahweh. You go therefore now and work, for there shall no straw be given you. Yet shall you deliver the number of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel did see that they were evil, after it was said. Exodus chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came to Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falls out any war, they also join to our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Raamses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, If it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Yahweh, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said to them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered before the midwives come into them. Therefore Yahweh dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Yahweh, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 2. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and bore a son. And when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and pitch, and put the child in it. And she laid in it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to find out what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark amongst the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrew children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to you a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren. You shall not deduct any from your bricks of your daily task. And when they met Moses and Aaron, who stood in the way as they came forth from Pharaoh, and they said to them, Yahweh look upon you and judge, because you've made our savor to be hated in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. And Moses returned to Yahweh and said, Yahweh, why then have you so evil entreated this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people. Neither have you delivered your people at all. End of chapter. This chapter 6. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Now shall you see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And Elohim spoke to Moses, and said to him, I am Yahweh, and I appeared to Abraham, and to Isaac, and to Jacob, by the name of El Shaddai. But by my name Yahweh I was not known to them. And I have also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, in which they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you an Elohim, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, which brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you into the land concerning that which I did swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and I will give it to you for a heritage. I am Yahweh. And Moses spoke so to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to him, Moses, for anguish of spirit and for cruel bondage. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Go in, speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that he let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moses spoke before Yahweh, saying, Behold, the children of Israel have not listened to me. How then shall Pharaoh hear me, who am of uncircumcised lips? And Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, and gave them a charge to the children of Israel, and to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. These are the heads of their fathers' houses, The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanok, and Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, and Jamin, and Ohad, and Jachin, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, and Kohath, and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimi, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath, Amram, and Izhar, and Hebron, and Uzziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. And the sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi. These are the families of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took to him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And the sons of Izhar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zichri. And the sons of Uzziel, Mishael, and Elzaphan, and Zithri. And Aaron took to him Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Naashon, to wife, and she bore him Nadab, and Abihu, and Eleazar, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korah, Asir, and Elkanah, and Abiasap. These are the families of the Korhites. And Eleazar, Aaron's son, took him of the daughters of Putiel to wife, and she bore him. And Yahweh said moreover to Moses, Thus shall you say to the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go, gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice. And you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh, our Elohim. And I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand, and strike Egypt with all my wonders which I will do in the midst of it. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourns in her house, jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and you shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. End of chapter. Exodus chapter 4. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor listen to my voice, for they will say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. And Yahweh said to them, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it. And Yahweh said to Moses, Put forth your hand, and take it by the tail. He put forth his hand, caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe that Yahweh, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahweh said furthermore to him, Put now your hand to your bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put your hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe you, neither listen to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these 2 signs, neither listen to your voice, that you shall take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which you take out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moses said to Yahweh, O Yahweh, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech, and of a slow tongue. And Yahweh said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I Yahweh? Now, therefore, go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. And he said, O Yahweh, send, I pray you, by the hand of him whom you will send. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he comes forth to meet you. And when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put words in his mouth. And I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. And he shall be your spokesman to the people. And he shall be, even he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and you shall be to him instead of Yahweh. And you shall take this rod in your hand, and with it you shall do signs. And Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, Let me go, I ask you, and return to my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. Jethro said,